Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam is in Beijing for her routine year-end duty report to the central government on the Special Administrative Region's annual affairs. Her visit comes after the region's first Legislative Council elections on Sunday, since changes were made to the electoral system earlier this year. Lam is expected to discuss a wide range of issues, including Hong Kong's economy. CGTN's Sun Ye has more.
After talking to the press about the significance of Hong Kong's election for its future, Chief Executive Carrie Lam is in Beijing until Thursday to discuss that future and brief officials on how the region is faring. She's expected to dwell on important issues for Hong Kong's residents, including the election and Hong Kong's connection with the mainland. Hong Kong's Chief Financial Secretary Paul Chan had previously raised his forecast for the region's GDP growth to 6.5% in 2021, citing a strong recovery momentum. Experts looking at Hong Kong's economic performance say there are still things to worry about, including COVID-19.
COVID-19 has been a major uncertainty for the world. Hong Kong is no different. From food and beverage to tourism and the hospitality industry, these industries had bore the brunt of COVID-19 in Hong Kong. And their situation keeps changing by the day. That's also why both the central government has policy boosts and other plans for the mainland and Hong Kong synergy.
In the new year, with the new Legislative Council and other growth momentums, Zhang also says Hong Kong has a promising year ahead.
Hong Kong has been transitioning, and it has new growth points to look forward to. I think the most exciting development could come from Hong Kong's burgeoning metropolitan area in the north, and also in sci-tech development, as Hong Kong joins Shenzhen in scientific development in greater stride. Lastly, the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau Greater Bay Area is getting even better connected in facilities, so a high-quality lifestyle circle could form. And there is the momentum that comes from joining Hong Kong's professional services with the mainland's manufacturing.
China's 14th five-year plan, which will steer the country into the year 2025, has highlighted Hong Kong and Macau's integration into mainland's economic growth. The plan has also stressed the high-quality development for the Greater Bay Area, and policies including the Cross-Boundary Wealth Management Connect has since launched to ensure Hong Kong will grow with the rest of China. Sun Ye, CGTN, Beijing.
Now, Hong Kong must be governed by Hong Kong patriots. That's the core principle upheld by the Chinese government. And a white paper released by China's State Council on Monday said the region's governance by patriots ensures that the long-established principle of one country, two systems is implemented and that democracy in Hong Kong develops according to its needs. More on that, we have my colleague Wang Hui joining us in the studio. Hello there, Wang Hui. Well, one country, two systems was first proposed in 1918 by Deng Xiaoping, and this principle is enshrined in the Constitution as well and codified and also institutionalized through the Basic Law. So tell us more about this concept.
Well, one country is the basis for the two systems. The two systems are the subordinate to and derived from one country. The socialist system practiced on the mainland and the capitalist system in Hong Kong run in parallel. The fact that the latter is subordinate to the former is not to be challenged. The central authorities in Beijing have overall jurisdiction over Hong Kong, which has enjoyed a high degree of autonomy since the handover in 1997. While exercising autonomy, the Hong Kong government is under the supervision of Beijing and is accountable to it. Then, how does the principle of Hong Kong patriots governing Hong Kong work? First, let's define what a Hong Kong patriot is. This is one who respects the Chinese nation, supports the motherland's resumption of sovereignty over Hong Kong, and seeks to push forward Hong Kong's prosperity and stability. The white paper says that those who instigate disorder and unrest are banned from the region's government. It also says firm measures must be taken to guard Hong Kong against the destabilizing the influences and the forces behind them. That said, the patriots governing Hong Kong does not exclude people with different political views or ideas, nor will criticism of the government will be suppressed. Democracy in Hong Kong allows ample space for different opinions and the political groups.
Well, Wang Hui, what does the white paper say about developing democracy in line with Hong Kong's realities?
Well, the white paper says that there's no single set of criteria for democracy and no single model of democracy that is universally acceptable. Democracy works only when it suits actual conditions and resolves actual problems. The social and political crisis and the turbulence in some countries and regions in recent years are evidence that there's no perfect democracy anywhere in the world. The white paper points out that democracy in Hong Kong should be guided by the central authorities in Beijing. It also says that the rule of law will be upheld to protect personal rights and freedoms under the Constitution and the Basic Law. And it must ensure that Hong Kong people enjoy these rights and are free to exercise them. These include freedom of speech, the press, and the publication, freedom of association, assembly, and demonstration, the right to vote and stand for election, and the right and freedom to organize and join trade unions and strike. The system of democracy in Hong Kong should not be a replica of some other model. Instead, a path to democracy in Hong Kong should be explored under the policy of one country, two systems, and the region's basic law. Dongning.
Thank you very much for the detailed introduction of the one country, two systems of concept and also the white paper related to Hong Kong affairs. Thank you very much, Wang Hui. Now, Western powers have condemned Hong Kong's Legislative Council vote. However, foreign ministers of the Group of Seven Nations said rules imposed by the Chinese central government reduced directly elected seats, eroding democracy in the region. And after changes to the electoral system earlier this year, a number of seats directly elected fell to 20 out of 90, down from half. The leaders said the new vetting process severely restricts the choice of candidates on the ballot, undermining Hong Kong's autonomy. They called on China to restore confidence in Hong Kong's political institutions and end the oppression of those who promote democratic values. And the Five Eyes countries and EU High Representative issued similar statements. The Chinese Foreign Ministry called their remarks irresponsible.
针对个别西方国家相互勾连
China firmly rejects and strongly condemns certain Western countries' collusion and irresponsible remarks. It's gross interference in China's internal affairs. Certain Western countries have shamefully expressed so-called concern over democratic elections in an administrative region of China. They condescendingly launched attacks on and made accusations about Hong Kong's democracy and the rule of law. This fully reveals the country's hypocrisy, as well as their vile scheme to destabilize Hong Kong and contain China's development.
For more into this, let's go live to Dr. Eugene K.K. Chan, President of the Association of Hong Kong Professionals. Mr. Chan, welcome to Global Watch. Well, as we just heard, the G7 foreign ministers expressed a concern over what they call the erosion of democratic elements in Hong Kong's electoral systems. And also the Western media also shared a lot of concerns regarding to the patriots governing Hong Kong and also the nature of the candidates, the electoral candidates. What do you make of all that concerns? As a Hong Kong citizen, do you share those concerns?
The simple answer is not at all. If the Western G7 government has followed closely on what has happened in Hong Kong and they have truly understand the spirit of the improvement of the electoral system, they know basically we are definitely working towards a proper democratic way to make Hong Kong a better place. I think as a Hong Kong citizen, to me, democracy is just a system. The most important is Hong Kong's will be able, for its people, Hong Kongers will be able to benefit from the social and economic development of Hong Kong. We must contribute to our nation and of course to the rest of the world. So personally, I think this new system ensure that Hong Kong can be on its right path. Mind you, Hong Kong before its handover, that's when we were brought up in Hong Kong. We never had much democracy in Hong Kong. Everything was appointed by the British government. And if you realize that as at today, that we have the improved electoral system, we'll have a wide representation of the different sectors of Hong Kong into the democratic system. We'll be able to plan for the people of Hong Kong that's most suited to Hong Kong. And when you're using a Western standard of so-called democracy, I beg to differ, because Hong Kong, we have a historical and different cultural background. And at the end of the day, we must have a system that will bring the most benefit to Hong Kong people, our nation, and the rest of the world. And in the last 24 years, since the handover, we had a recent white paper coming out. We have been looking at following what the rest of what we did before under the British colonization. What we ended up is chaos, and we are not moving forward at all. So the answer is very simple. So if they do have a heart for Hong Kong and for the people in China, the answer is obvious.
As far as you understand, Mr. Tan, do you see or do you feel that Hong Kong people with any concerns of this new electoral having any problems of hearing different voices from the Hong Kong society?
Right. This is exactly what Hong Kong is all about. Hong Kong, we have always treasured our freedom of speech, but freedom of thinking. This is all enshrined in the basic law. Look at the recent election. We had 30.2% of people coming to vote. 1.35 million people, that's a lot of people. Of course, if you compare to the last election committee that election or previous district council election, there are more people. It's fine, because Hong Kong is so democratic that people have the right to choose to vote or prefer not to vote. I think this is a true reflection of the democracy. And after the improvement of the electoral system, there are people going to observe and see what this is all about. And I perfectly understand people, if they don't have, for example, two of the major democratic camps have said they're not going to run for election. So their supporters, naturally, they don't know who to choose. So they prefer to sit on the sideline, which I respect that. And I'm sure in time, they will see how this new legislative council is going to work, whether they will bring new heights for Hong Kong, then they will come back and embrace the system. So I'm perfectly happy with what has happened. I think it's done very well.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Eugene K.K. Chan, President of the Association of Hong Kong Professionals. Thank you very much for your insight.